Hey guys, you're back with a new video. Gonna be talking about the character that I'm currently playing, my Animate Guardian of Smiting Gladiator. I'm gonna be talking a bit about the setup that I'm doing, basically explaining all of the mechanics, all of the gear that my AG is using, and all of the gear that I am using, and some scaling stuff, how some stuffs interact with each other, and yeah, I think to start, if you want to see some showcases on some harder stuff, feel free to watch one of the last two videos. Later on in the video, after explaining the AG gear, I'm gonna be delving in the background, so you can see some gameplay in deep delve there. Currently at 2.9k. Yeah, still going up, so no time to waste. Or down rather. Yes, I think let's first get into the AG gear, so we can get some baseline going about what we're actually scaling. So first of all, Animate Guardian of Smiting. What it actually does is you spawn a normal Animate Guardian, similar to the normal gem. And instead of using basic attack like the normal gem, the Animate Guardian of Smiting uses Smite of Divine Judgment. Basically the same skill. I think it uses, I would assume, either level 1 or level 20. I'm not too sure actually. But it has the same mechanics as Smite of Divine Judgment. Yes, the gem itself also gives quality move speed and has implicitly 76% more damage, or like I think 2% per level roughly. That got also doubled with the patch, so this got quite a big buff, which is very nice. Yes, for the AG gear, basically all of the scaling that we're doing on the build is revolved around either the Grey Wind and the Flame Link. The Grey Wind reads the attacks with these weapons have added fire damage equal to some percentage of the player's maximum life. All of these effects, the Grey Wind and the Raft Pit Globe, do not count the minion life, but they instead count the player's life. That's why we are life stacking, so I have 25k HP right here, giving a lot of flat damage to each attack. The other stuff on the X, the Rage stuff, anti-fire exposure does not work, since currently my AG setup does not have any Rage. So just keep in mind, these two roles do not matter. Yes. Yeah, Grey Wind gives us all our flat damage. How do we scale that flat damage? We need some percent damage. Percent damage is coming from the Raft Pit. Raft Pit, 6% or 5% spell damage per 100 player life. Similar to the Grey Wind, scales with player life. So, Tainted Varling or Corrupted Varling, this one gives it 6% per 100 spell damage, which gives just a lot of spell damage. How do we convert that to attack damage? Round of Ice, of course. Spell damage applies to attacks with 150% value. So basically this is the free atom combo, giving us all of our flat damage and all of our percent damage. So the only thing that we actually have to scale is more damage, and that's mostly done via just support gems. So it's not a lot of scaling that we have to do, but scaling life on our character for damage. Life, more damage, and crit is basically the only things we have left to scale. For what you're gonna see later on as well is the volatile Valorabs are used load in this build. So the Grey Wind has been volatile valed to 14%. There's actually possible to val it to 15%, but there are a few on the market, but I didn't want to buy any without the attack speed enchant. So yeah, making it with the attack speed enchant hitting 15% is pretty damn difficult. I'm still going for that. Could be an upgrade. But yeah, so as you can get. Then Raft Pit, 6% spell damage. All of the other rolls do not matter at all. The maximum life does not matter the roll. Just 6% spell damage should be pretty cheap. Few divines. Very, very good to get this. Crown of Ice, for the corruption implicit, there are a few options. You can do Area of Effect. You can do +1 power charge. You can do Malediction. I'm sure there are a few others that I'm forgetting. I do like AoE quite a lot. Because I try to scale some AoE for better coverage in maps and also to get me some better overlaps with the additional strikes in delve nodes. if some stuff spawns a bit far away from each other, can still get some overlaps going, which can easily double, triple the damage. Yes, then body armor. Garb of the Ephemeral. Normally Garb is used on support AGs only for the action speed and for the crit reduction. However, on actually damage AGs, Garb is a lot of damage. Divine Charges, aka Divinity, provides 75% more elemental damage while it is active. It takes 10 seconds to get active and then has a 10-second cooldown basically. It takes 10 seconds to get active on the cooldown. But while generating charges, you can generate 1 charge per second. Then the buff lasts 10 seconds, so you have 10 seconds up, 10 seconds downtime if you have perfectly attacking. This is also here in the config. Garb average, 37% more damage. Yes, and implicits on the Garb, there's basically only one that's really useful. Its attacks have +1 to base critical strike chance. Very, very strong since we are scaling crit. If you can get your hands on this, it's good. If you can't, then you're just losing some DPS. It's not the end of the world. For gloves, the only rare piece basically on the Animate Guardian. And basically one thing that makes the AG viable this league compared to all of the last leagues is previously for really endgame content you would be running the Soul Eater gloves. However, this league, due to the new gem, the Transfusion gem, giving Soul Eater to a nearby minion when you spend life costs, you can have permanent Soul Eater anyways on the AG without the glove slot, which easily caps us for the damage reduction for the AG, gives us a ton of attack speed, and allows the glove slot to get us the additional strike skills that's so important for Smite for clearing. As you can see, I have double Pinnacle mod here on the gloves. Someone pointed out in the last video, thanks for that these actually also do work on the AG, similar to on the Mercenary that we had before. So you want fire exposure on hit here with the Pinnacle mod, and you want additional strike skills for 4 additional nearby targets. Pretty expensive to craft, but very, very worth to at least get the additional strike skills to 4. The base what you're crafting on does not matter. Personally, I just went with fractured attack speed and then spammed Chaos Essences until I hit T1 Fire Res. Why Chaos and Fire? Because, or you can hit any res and then swap. Chaos Res, because if you look at the AG stats, he is not Chaos Resist capped. That's the only thing that could actually technically kill him in extremely hard content. And the fire resistance is, without it, you're basically at 75 or a bit below even, because the Crown of Ice has the -30 fire resist on it. So we just want to balance that out. For the prefixes, you're gonna be running, you're just gonna lock and then Veiled Chaos and then unveil either strike range or AoE. Both are completely fine. And then craft the other. So yeah, pretty simple to craft the gloves, nothing too crazy. For boots, I'm using Fallborn 7 League steps. There are actually 2 options. I have Volatile Val up these to 18% action speed instead of 15%. But even the base 15% boots are basically the same as Ralakesh. So if you don't want to use those, or if you can't get your hands on 18%, using Frenzy Ralakesh is basically the same performance. It's 1 or 2% difference in DPS. The upside of the Fallborn 7 League steps is extra speed also gives him movement speed, and it doesn't basically block his frenzy charges. So if he steals some charges with the Headhunter from the helmet, he will still get the benefit of those frenzy charges. So you basically have the frenzy charges on top of actually having a boot slot that does something else than giving frenzy charges. That's why I went with the Fallborn 7 League steps. Also, it's a new item and basically not used anywhere else, so very cool to use some of the more off-meta stuff. That's basically all of the AG. I think we can get into the game and start playing while I explain my other gear. So as I explained, we are scaling live to scale the damage from the AG, the flat damage and the percent damage. So thinking about how we actually want to scale life is we basically want to use Dissolution. Since Dissolution gives us 30% more HP. Yeah, Dissolution gives us 30% more maximum life, but has the big downside of life that would actually damage us, reserves our life, and we need to actually not take any damage for roughly 2 seconds. How can we make that easily possible in some harder stuff like this delving content here? That's first of all going Gladiator for lucky block. So just being glad. Basically, the ascendancy I'm using is 2 points. We have the base 50 block from the shield here. So putting the squares 29 block to 50. And then more than skill is of course the lucky block, giving us 91 block chance. This already allows a ton of hit-based stuff to not interrupt our 2-second window to recharge our life reservation, basically. To make this even stronger, this alone would already be enough for, I think, most of mapping content. Just being Gladiator, putting on Dissolution, and running nothing else for the recovery is completely fine for mapping. This is also what I would recommend on the lower budget. So the stuff that I'm going to be explaining next, I would do more if you're on a higher budget, or if you're looking for some harder content, like some Balder maps or deep delving, where you're going to be needing the blood barrier. So let's talk about the thing that I get probably asked the most is, why use this belt? Coward's Chains, pretty mediocre belt, I would say. Damage of enemies hitting you is unlucky while you're cursed with vulnerability, and you're always cursed with vuln is decent, but this is like 5 to 8% damage reduction in total. This is not the main reason why we're using this. The main reason is you count as on full life while you are cursed with vulnerability. And there is this chaos bloodline that was added last patch, where you need to equip a certain amount of corrupted items. Equipped corrupted items only mean your character window, so jewels do not count. Also Abyss jewels, socket and gear do not count, so you need to have actually 8 corrupted items, which is for me basically everything I found this character except for 1 ring and 1 amulet. Those are reflected, all of the other stuff is corrupted. Shepherd of Souls and 4 corrupted items does nothing for us, we don't have any wild skills. Everlasting Sacrifice does nothing for us, we don't have any energy shield. We're only using this for the 8 corrupted items passive, for the Sacrifice of Blood. Sacrifice of Blood does life recovery from regen, grants a blood barrier while on full life, and maximum blood barrier is equal to 30% of your maximum life. And any hit that you take while you have blood barrier is taken from the blood barrier before your life and before Dissolution applies. Which means you see the blood barrier at the top left here, 7,559. If I take a hit that goes through my block and deals me 7,000 damage, this blood barrier would go to 500 and would immediately regen again up with my regen rate, which is roughly 3,000 a second right now. And I would not reserve any life with Dissolution here. The upside for this is, for example, if I take a huge hit, if I take a hit for like 20k damage, I reserve this, the 7,000 gets deleted, and I take 13,000 more on my base life, so I'm at 12,000 left. 13k is reserved, and the blood barrier is recharging again. And after 1 second, after taking this 20,000 hit, I take a like 2,000 hit. Very small hit, just goes through, which normally would reset the 2-second window for the Dissolution. So you need to be not taking any damage for 2 seconds. However, since we only took 2,000 damage and our blood barrier has already recharged again back up to like 3,000, the blood barrier only gets drained down from 3,000 to 1,000, which means we don't take any damage to our life, which means the 2-second window does not start again, but instead continues. And after 1 second after that hit, we are fully unreserving our life again, and we're basically back at full life. So this blood barrier, in addition to the Gladiator block, provides a buffer window for very, very small hits to not interrupt your life reservation from Dissolution. And this is incredibly, incredibly important for harder content, where some stuff that might tickle you because you're on 90 max res or whatever, but still would reset your dissolution all of the time, would just kill you then. You can perfectly notice this if you play Dissolution on something that's not Gladiator with not the blood barrier. You can very easily die from crowded content where you're just getting tons of small hits and you never have time to recover. You just die. And this is basically what this is made against. Yes, and the Coward's Chains enables this. You count as on full life while you're cursed with vulnerability. And even because I have even Vitality reserved on my life anyways, I always count as full life. So even if some life is reserved, the blood barrier is still regenerating. If you weren't using the Coward's Chains, yeah, okay, this is a crafted item now, but the blood barrier would be removed and would not regenerate anymore. Because you're never on full life if you have life reserved. Hopefully that explains this part of the build, which is basically the most asked thing. Yes, I think now that we've decided we want to play Dissolution, we basically want Dissolution for the 30% max for damage scaling, and we have solved how Dissolution is bad for us. Let's talk a bit about some of the items and scaling the AG in terms of max life in other ways. I'm getting to the 25k dive now. And yeah, let's start with, I think, the chest, easiest piece. For running Chaos. Basically, there are two options for the Chaos Heart. For a chest slot, you can either run the Chaos Heart or you can run the Apostate. Yes, the Apostate normally is a bit better for life stacking than the Chaos Heart because you can get a higher value of life out of it compared to a Chaos, and you get a 6-link. However, on this build, since we're using this helmet is fixed, I'm gonna go over next, and it does not have any energy shield, the Chaos Heart is a bit weaker. It has a very low energy shield. The Apostate is very weak, so we decided to go for the Chaos Heart here for scaling. Yeah, I don't know, maybe you've seen this chest, posted it on Reddit, but I lock volatile valve up this after chancing it with the life modifier. It's actually the highest possible Chaos Heart you can get in the game. It's crazy to hit this one, 1403 max life. Compared to one with just 1.22k, so a max roll on the normal volatile valve, which are around I think 45 diff at the moment. This is like 1.2k more max HP, which was roughly a 10% DPS upgrade. Yeah, very nice. Yeah, let's go over the helmet next. Basically the other unique core piece. The Helmet Monarch is a new Uber unique that was introduced like last week or 2 weeks ago, which allows your link skills to target damageable minions, which your HE is one. Without the helmet, you would have to spec the minion defense mastery that reads the same line. Also, your linked minions take 73% less damage, is good, I would say. It is not the most important role on this helmet. Since with Soul Eater, the Animate Guardian already gets 90% less damage taken, which is fine for basically all of content. The 73% less is just even a nice gain on top of that. So 97% less damage on the AG. Yeah, but the big line is the last one. On killing a rare monster, random linked minion gains its modifiers for 60 seconds. The on killing a rare monster works with minions. So if the Animate Guardian kills something, he will get Headhunter stacks. Basically, this is a full Headhunter for your Animate Guardian. So he gets all of the modifiers from each rare mod he kills. Incredibly, incredibly strong. Also for Delph, incredibly strong. You kill like 5 to 10 rares, I would say, per node, which is just a lot of damage. And for Valdo maps, you can pre-ramp some Headhunter stacks before getting into field or into whatever hard content there is in maps So very nice. Also gives us you some AoE, some other stuff, some speed. Yeah, very nice. Yeah. Since we're using the Chaos Heart, we don't have the luxury of a 6-link. So the most logical conclusion is to go for a Squire setup. Since the Animate Guardian is basically using a strike skill, there are a lot of strike supports on Shaper Elder weapons that are usable. Yeah. Using the, let's quickly run through the node. Using a 5-link weapon at the moment. Best would be a 6-link weapon, and then using a Squire for a total of 13 links that's possible at the moment. Yeah, the weapon, Shaper Elder weapon, technically easiest to craft, which I would highly recommend doing if you're crafting yourself, is use a one-handed mace with a strength requirement of below 191, so below the requirement of a Chaos Heart. Allows you to not need this enchant that I have on here. I have this weapon because I bought this one. I crafted a 4 mod myself and upgraded to this one because this was very cheap on trade. Yes, most important things on the weapon are the prefixes, I guess. The 40% more attack damage, 20 ruthless, and 20 elemental damage with attacks. This is basically done all with recombinating. So Awaken orbing 2 of those together and then going for a 2 + 2 = 3 recomb until you have 3 prefixes. For a 4 mod weapon, you can then just lock your prefixes and reforge crit until you hit one of the 2 critical strikes mods. And yeah, then craft minion attack speed and you're done. On a lower budget, I would recommend not corrupting the weapon, instead running 2 corrupted rings and just leaving the weapon uncorrupted. This is what I did at the start. Yeah, we want here, the 40% more attack, ruthless, elemental damage with attacks, then double crit mod. And technically the best last mod would be multi-strike, and then we're replacing the greater multi-strike with another support gem. You can also run faster attacks. Those are the 2 that work. Ancestral Call does not work for the Animate Guardian, keep that in mind. So yeah, if you can get a 6 mod, there are a few weapons up for mirror service, so technically you could mirror one of those and then run a corrupted ring. But I think 5 mod corrupted beats mirrored 6 mod. So if you get a good ring, just keep that in mind. Yeah, then running Square, of course, 3 more links. Nothing crazy. Square with life corruption. Life is the most important thing. Yeah. For gem links, AG linked with multi-strike, with fire pen, minion damage, minion shield, meat shield, and elite focus. And imbued with pulverize. I also got asked a few times if it's better to imbue Feeding Frenzy compared to Pulverize. Personally, I don't think so. I think Feeding Frenzy actually bugs out his AI quite a bit. That's why I like Pulverize for more AoE scaling. It's also, I think, the second most damage support, second or third. Very close. So yeah. That's also why I'm running Meat Shield actually. Minions are defensive, means the Animate Guardian's aggression range is not even the full screen here. So for clear, you might want to remove the Meat Shield and run something else, like invert the rules or something. Or Annihilation is what I'm doing for explodes. But Meat Shield is good for having a bit less buggy AI, giving some more move speed and also some more damage reduction for the deep dive content I'm in right now. Yeah, let's go next. Amulet. One of the things that's not corrupted. We want an amulet with reflected life is most important, as high as you can get. If you craft this yourself, since focused amulets are so cheap at the moment. I think the base is what, 17? Okay, 31 for a base. Not too hard to craft this. Is just fear essences spamming until you get T1 life on a good divine. It's not worth divining if you're doing it on a focus amulet. Just spam more fear essences until you get a good life roll, T1. think it's like 1 in 40 or something. And then reflecting the amulet and going for positive life and positive minion move speed. Minion move speed, very, very good quality of life. If you don't have it on the amulet, I would highly recommend getting it on the rings at least. Since I have it on the amulet, I dropped it on the rings. And for non-mapping content, the move speed, of course, is not that important. But it's still good, because when you convocate from a bit further away, the minion will still need to run to the target. So getting good move speed is quite nice. Yeah, this is probably the easiest thing to craft. Next, the Unset Ring. I'm running 1 Unset Ring since the socket pressure is so high. With the Chaos Heart and both weapon and shield slots being occupied by the 6 links. Yeah, I have Frostbreak in here with Imbue Culling Strike. Yeah, Culling is just nice to have, not necessary, of course. For the crafting of the Unset Ring, highly recommend get one with the Fractured mod, Fractured of the Order, Strength Int. You can run Strength Dex, you can run Pure Strength if your reflected other ring is good enough, if you have that, but that is on a very high budget. So I would recommend just going for the Strength Int, and you can still use that Int for some Int tattoos. Yeah. For the crafting, Fractured mod, and then I did, I think, life reforges. Reforged life until I hit 1 T1 res or T2 res, and then just slammed until full suffixes and hopefully get a second res. Pretty tedious craft, but not too complicated. Since you don't need another prefix, there are no good prefixes. Just craft some regen on there. And make sure you gilded fossil it before. And then, yeah, corrupt and hope it doesn't brick or changes the gilded implicit to something else, which it did here for me. Yeah, very nice ring here. For the other ring, you want, if you're running 2 corrupted rings with another weapon, then I would recommend just making 2 of these rings. So just make a second Unset Ring. With some res, you're probably gonna need res from your other gear if your gear isn't great enough yet. If you can fit it, then you can already do a bone ring, but you would have to PoE a bit around what rolls you need on a non-reflected bone. For the reflect bone ring, we want positive life, and strength int again, and minion attack speed. These are made by just getting the fractured base again, and then reforging caster, which is like a 1 in 7 or something to hit T1 attack and cast speed, and then just slamming until the item is full for T1 life. And before you reflect it, then make sure to catalyst it, of course, and make sure all of the other mods don't do anything. So if your accuracy, energy shield, fire damage against you does nothing all, you just don't want like negative minion damage or negative minion move speed or negative minion life. Just make sure you have none of those on there. Make a clean ring. Getting the T1 life plus the T1 minion attack cast speed is not hard. It's like 1 to 2 diff on harvest juice. Very, very easy to make. Just hitting the free mod is pretty rare. It's a 1 in 10 on the reflect. So crafting costs for this ring, keeping the divines and whatever you need to do before reflecting it in mind, is upwards of like 300 diff. So this is a pretty end game upgrade. So yeah, just run a corrupted ring first if you can't afford this yet. For the gloves, yeah, gloves, pretty basic gloves. Just actually, I think I bought the done suffixes, but you would spam chaos essences until you hit life regen and then slam the last res, or lock suffix reforge like cold or whatever to reforge the res into like T1 or T2. Yeah, this is pretty tedious to make, but not technically too hard. If you're crafting the suffixes from scratch, it can cost up to like 20 diff roughly, I think, and then getting T1 life is another few divines on the fracture. You want to start with either fractured T1 max roll or fractured hybrid max roll. Technically, T1 is easier to divine. I would recommend with starting with T1 fractured. Then craft minion damage, and for implicit, some running mark effect and minion damage. running perfect and grand. I think I lock corrupted these gloves. No, I think I YOLO corrupted them still, but depending on how much you invest into implicits with the prices of the conflict ops right now, it might be better to lock corrupt this, but yeah, or settle a bit on the suffixes and then just YOLO corrupt is probably what I would recommend. Boots. Boots actually an important slot, very important slot for the Dissolution jewel. Since getting any dots on Dissolution also disables your the 2-second window while you took any damage. We want to get Cannot Be Poisoned on the boots, which is done via essences, and also avoid bleeding on the implicit. Crafted this by doing some essence spam into, I think I went for either region or res, some combo of that. Depending on if you get region here, you can maybe drop it on gloves and yeah, do some shuffling around. And with your resists, if you have a resist ring, a second one, you might need some less resist here, which makes the boots easier to craft. For me, I went for basically GG boots. That's why I did the implicits before the first craft. So I did the 2 max fire and the 41 bleed avoid, and then you can gilded fossil actually. And the gilded fossil will not get removed if you craft the explicits, which gives you higher odds to not fail the corruption afterwards. So if you're making GG boots, do the implicits first, gilded fossil it, and then craft the explicits. Very important, especially since I lock corrupted these boots. So if you would hit any of the other 2 implicits, it's basically a brick. Since we need the avoid bleed chance, you can maybe fix that with some tattoos, but you 100% need the max to fire res. Yeah, for the explicits, essence spam until 1 res, slam the other or reforge the other, and then for prefixes, just Veiled Chaos until you had the move speed, and move speed if not been hit recently. The other 2 don't do anything, so I would actually recommend to go for the have been hit recently. Yeah, it's worth getting this 12% more move speed, especially on a non-mage butt build. You don't have any like giga speed, you're basically running normal Quicksilver Silver Flask for move speed. Yeah, would highly recommend going for the good move speed mod here. Shouldn't be too hard. It's like I think it's a 1 in 3 to hit this one, so not too bad. And then just craft a hybrid. Yes. Yeah. Belt I already went over. I think this is all of the gear. Let's flasks, I guess. Yeah, bottle faith just for the 10% damage. The crit mod does not work for minions. So just for the 10% damage, and we need a way to get consecrate in the ground for some regen. And the bottle faith has good coverage of delve nodes, so it's basically the whole screen. If I have to dodge somewhere, it's still up. Yes, then Progenesis. Progenesis I would only recommend to actually run in content while you are stationary. If you have good enough max res, you will never die anyways. You have so big of an HP pool. You have like 300k max hits just from your big HP pool and the max res. And the Progenesis can technically brick you on no region maps, since Progenesis damage actually is the only thing that goes to your real health damage. It's a bit hard to see because my blood barrier is never broken. So any damage you would take to your real health that gets reserved would also give you the 25% as degen to your health. If you're at 0 life, so if I would deactivate like my vitality, I would maybe slowly degen. I'm not sure. If I was at 0 life in, for example, a no region map, since we're constantly spending with transfusion, and you take any damage, the degen from Genesis would immediately kill you. So for mapping, when I did my leveling to 100 doing breach, I swapped this out for a normal amethyst flask with just a rarity craft on it for more gold. I would highly recommend to do so as well. You will never die anyways, so Progenesis does not really matter. I'm just using it here for like really some of the giga content. So just keep that in mind. Yeah, other flasks. Quicksilver, we want 1 flask with curse reduction on you, since we are cursed with vulnerability all of the time. My AG is actually dying. So we want 1 flask with curse reduction together with the consecrated ground curse reduction. The vulnerability does nothing for us, so we don't take any increased physical damage. And then we have a silver flask with move speed, since we need more speed. And then a Quartz Flask with Life Regen Enchant. Quartz Flask mostly for phasing, since minion builds without phasing are kind of cringe to play. Keep that in mind, so kind of about phasing. Yeah, let's take a quick look at the tree and explain some of the jewels. First, I guess tree, Ascendancy like a reset Gladiator. Last two Ascendancies, small roads that actually do completely nothing. So this is 10% attack speed. There's no good secondary node, no good fourth node, and also nothing on the bloodline. There's small node on the bloodline is Val Souls, so we don't have any Val skills. For the tree, pretty straightforward. Basic life stacking tree. Key points. We are running 6 life masteries for the 10% more max life, while you have 6 life masteries allocated. All of the other stuff basically does nothing except for the 30 max life. All of the rest of the masteries don't do anything. Yeah, running Unwavering Stance, so it can't be stunned, even though it's very unlikely to be stunned anyways with 20k, 25k HP. Technically, you could unspec this if you like, but for me, it's worth the 1 point for some quality of life. Yes, then important, since we're Gladiator, we need 2 block wheels. 3 block wheels actually. I'm running triple block mastery for max attack block, max spell block, and spell block per attack block to exactly cap me. You can look at the PoP quickly to 91-91. So a bit over cap, but 91-91. Yeah. And also this wheel we're pathing down here because endurance charge on block gives us perma endurance charges during difficult content when you're actually getting attacked. So very nice. Versatile combatant, so it's way easier to cap spell block from attack block, of course. It's normal Gladiator stuff. Yeah, for resistances, why the resistances are so tight because I'm running a melting setup. Yeah, balance out the minus 72 basically just from res on gear. Luckily the Helm is 32 and yeah, 2 res rolls on rings, 2 on boots, 1 on gloves. And I'm running Purity of Elements, Eternal Blessing. Gives us also more res. Yeah, rest of the tree, running the Red Dream. Red Dream for the max life per Endu. Max life per fire res, sorry, in the area. So we have some healer res here as well on the tree from the Marauder nodes, and we're tattooing everything to fire res in the radius of this one. Just gives a lot of life, even with the nerf to 50%. I'm running a double one with Chaos Res per endurance charge. This is not necessary. I think I'm Chaos Resist capped just from with the Flask up. So not needed at all. It's just a bit more consistent technically. If the Flask drops, you're still Chaos Resist capped. But yeah, this is, I think, how much is it? Yeah, 140 diff compared to one mod is 17. So just get the one mod one and upgrade way down the line. Yeah, speaking 1 endurance charge, here the other 2 pointers are not really worth it. I'm not dying anyways, so don't need more tankiness, and life gives us damage and tankiness, so rather spec more life nodes. For minion masteries, running 2 offensive masteries, offering effect, just because here this is actually some decently efficient nodes with offering effect. Yeah, basically best damage nodes you can get. Could technically be droppable and just spec 4 more life nodes, but they are less damage compared to this, so this is just better, but less tankiness for yourself. And very important mastery is the minions have 30% increased AoE. Like I mentioned with the Cronfire's corrupt earlier, we want AoE. AoE very good for overlaps and for mapping. So make sure you pick up that. Other than that, yeah, triple cluster setup. Running 3 times Raise and Pillage, Renewal, and Vicious Bite. Vicious Bite for crit scaling, since we are basically, I think we're at 70% crit chance, and quite a few crit multi. That is roughly 6.5% DPS node. And then Renewal. due to all of the damage reduction that he has, and he has leech from the Crown of Ice as well. He is basically always on full life. This may sometimes be down, I guess, but yeah, it's the best secondary node anyways. There is a point, technically you could drop the large cluster and run one passive voices instead, and you will even get one skill point back, but I think it's worse. These nodes are just too good from a raw damage perspective, especially Vicious Bite. So I do like the rare setup more, and the voices setup would obviously cost like 4 mirrors more. If I find that it's better down the line, I may swap to that, but for now I would just go with the largest. I'm not planning to swap anytime soon. So yeah, 3 clusters like here, here, here. Let's take a look at the jewels. Yeah, melting we already talked about. Then we have the unique jewels. Yeah, with adorned. This is an adorned setup with 5 adorned jewels. You need 100% adorned to get to 90 max res. However, it's not necessary to play a build. So I would recommend to start an adorned setup, start with 86% or 87. Whenever the 7% life swaps to 13%. So just start with an 86 one. Yeah, adorned with the magic jewels. You can take a look. I'm running 4 times life and max fire res. One with corrupting blood immunity, and one just random synth one I hit. One with maim immunity, and one with hinder immunity. One just minion damage, and one of the one with max res and one with all res to keep my all res for 25% overcap for exposure. Very, very important in delving, especially. You might get away with a bit less in maps, but in delve you can die very quickly if you get exposure on you and then a bunch of mobs hitting you. Yes, Dissolution we already talked about, and last jewel I think I'm running is the Watcher's Eye. Watcher's Eye for Chaos Res, while Purity of Elements is the most important mod. And then double recovery for Vitality. Even if you don't have a double mod, if you only have Chaos Res, I would still run Vitality for the regen. But yeah, I would say the life recovery rate is better than the regen. I didn't check, but pretty sure it is. Yeah, get a 2 mod if you can. Get a 3 mod if there is one available. I would assume there isn't, or it's very expensive. Yeah, 2 mod is like 20 if there are some, so should be okay to get a 2 mod. Yeah. For the tattoos, I guess for the graft, I'm running the Rune Graft of the Warp because it does work with the Flame Link duration. And some negative stuff might already also be bad for Dissolution, so just very nice to have. Mostly for the Flame Link. Then for the other tattoos, I tattooed everything to, and need 6. You need 6 chance to avoid bleed tattoos. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Together with the 40% from the boots, gets you to 100% bleed chance avoidance. Very important. And then the rest of the strength nodes I all tattooed away to regen. You lose, like, I don't know, 10 to 15 maximum life, but you instead gain 70 regen, which is massive for the blood barrier. So you want more regen for the blood barrier to fill up quicker. So tattoo everything away to regen. Yeah. You can also tattoo a few extra nodes to fire res. I think I have 2 extra here to overcap me to 25 exactly. So yeah, I would prioritize fire res to 25 overcap and then go for regen for the rest if you have enough strength. If you don't have the reflected ring, you just run 3 or 4 less tattoos. Not a big deal. Yeah, I think that was everything. Let's go with the gems, I guess. Gems I didn't cover yet. Yeah, we covered the 6 link already. Let's go over the other stuff. Yeah, transfusion support. New in this league. New exceptional support gem. Nearby minion gains a soul for every 200 life you spend on upfront costs. Since our life pool does not actually matter, we can spend as much life as we want and still be fine. If you are not running Progenesis, it is completely fine to sit at 1 HP from this degen, especially during mapping. So normally during Delph nodes, I'm getting most of my recovery actually from the Consecrated Ground. So outside of that, you will still degen a bit. But I've balanced it. So like with just a 21 and the level 2 transfusion, I've roughly balanced it with my life regen to still be positive. Just for the Progenesis degen if I get hit, so that the degen doesn't kill me. Which works out nicely. If you feel like you need faster ramp time, so spending more life ramps its souls, the AG souls faster. So currently with my skill cost, it takes I think 5 seconds to get to maximum 45 souls. If you want it to be faster, you can level this to level 3 or even level 4 and quality it. And even get an Imbue on the Corrupting Fever for some more restoration cost. But I think this like costs like 1000 something is pretty fine. 1490 is fine. So yeah, I don't know, works for me. Keeping it like this. Having this in an automation setup, just so you don't need to do anything on zone change. This will automatically ramp over the first few seconds. And I also run convocation in this. If you're mostly mapping, you could unlink this from automation and just manually convocate. Probably what I would do if you want to be a bit more efficient. If you don't, then just leave it on convocation. Doesn't matter. Yeah, Frostblink on Culling Strike. Imbue. Nice to have, not mandatory. Flamelink. Mandatory Flamelink gives us another, is like 1/4 of our base damage for the AG. Also scales with our maximum life. So 5% from here, 15% from the X. Then you have S-Mark. It's a manual S-Mark, so you need to manually curse the boss. And Spirit Offering is a manual offering, so you also need to press Spirit Offering every 10 to 15 seconds, depending on how many corpses you consume. I have the Moderation Imbue on the Spirit Offering. You can get this either on the Flamelink or on the Spirit Offering, but Spirit Offering is a bit less damage loss, I think. So it's a bit better to get it on the Spirit Offering. Yes. Technically, during mapping, you could run Flammability and get a Moderation on the Flammability. I think this is a lot cheaper, so just an option to keep in mind. Yeah, then running just a normal Vitality. Quality is actually pretty good here to have the AG with the Vitality always in range, since it doesn't actually have a lot of HP, just a lot of damage reduction. The 200 flat regen is actually quite a lot for him. So nice to get one with quality. Yeah, then Purity of Elements, Eternal Blessing, giving us ailment immunity, especially to Ignite, since getting Ignited would break the Dissolution again. So this is mandatory to have ailment immunity. If you're not running Purity of Elements, you need to have ailment immunity in some other way or form. Yes, then Stormblast Mine. Stormblast Mine is, I would say, basically Delve only, or if you're doing bossing only. Feel free to run like faster attacks or something, linked to shield charge or momentum to be a bit faster in maps. Otherwise, it's not necessary. So throwing these mines down, you can quickly check in the PoB. If you don't have any Stormblast Mine, I'm at 385. With the Stormblast Mine, I'm at nearly 600. So this is a like 53% more DPS. Incredibly strong. But of course, only really usable in Delve or bossing content. So not needed outside of that. Yeah, and then shield charge. Imbue it with fast attacks to be a bit faster since they don't have a lot of attack speed. Yeah, if we're running, without Stormblast Mine, I would run fast attacks as main link and imbue this with momentum. Yeah. I guess we can do another boss as a final showcase. Some final gameplay stuff. How to play actually. You link your Flame Link to the AG. It is pretty easy to target him, I would say, since with Convocation is nearly always on top of you. Just link it to him. Not big of a deal. And for keep up the offering. For bossing content, you can run Desecration. So you can have Desecrate on single targets. Personally, with my damage, doing phase 1 of the Delph bosses takes a few seconds anyways, so I don't really care. And in phase 2 I have the offering from the ads that spawn the intermission here. So every 10 seconds press your offering, and then during bossing throw down some mines, or not throw mines and dodge some stuff. Yeah, curse the boss once with Assassin's Mark since it has infinite duration. For other stuff, I'm very happy with the builds. I guess Time to not die to fucking darkness. Yeah, very happy with the build. Turned out from damage, I don't know, perspective, way better than I could have imagined. I thought I would have less DPS, but as you can see, like these chunks, it's just insane how much damage the AG does. Very nice. I guess I can show you, since the soul fight is nearly out anyways, we can show you a quick map. For mapping, you can swap in the Annihilation support for Meat Shield. I'll show you that. Which allows the AG to explode, and there was a detail post. The explode actually scales with a lot of the minion modifiers. So this has Elder Slayers. I guess let's kill the Elder Slayers somewhere on the map. But yeah, mapping, you can see the guy runs. Sometimes he's a bit buggy. And with targeting, that's what the convocation fixes. But yeah, the coverage of him is very good with the additional strikes. I've farmed like Juiced Breach with him to level 100, which was not an issue at all. Elder Slayers, and they're all dead. That's one. I guess dogs. And he's dead. Yeah, damage is very good. We'll upload a few more showcases, I think, from some Ubers. You can actually see compared to, I think, a lot of other builds to Uber showcases. So I just want to have a good baseline in there for what you can expect for damage on this kind of gear level. But yeah, as you can see, the clear is completely fine. People were concerned that it's clunky or whatever. It's really not. So especially in Juiced Breach, where you don't have to move much anyways. It's just good. It's not KBE, but it clears even 2 screens at once with the Annihilation, so perfectly fine. Yeah, if you have any more questions about anything, hopefully I didn't forget any mechanics or anything that I built around. If you have any questions left, leave something in the comments. Video was, I guess, way too long, but if you want a detailed breakdown, it is quite a complex build, I think, with the Animate Guardian and with especially the Blood Barrier tech with the corrupted items, how that works together. Yeah, if you have anything, leave it in the comments. Other than that, feel free to leave a like on the video and subscribe for some more showcases and builds in the future. See you guys around.